Great. Good morning, everybody. As Snow's heard, my name's Bruce Robertson. Look, it's tremendous to be here. Thank you, Jonathan, for the privilege of joining the team and picking up the role from Philip, who, by the way, is a good colleague of mine. Pick up the role as your independent chair of your risk committee, and it's absolutely wonderful to be here and pick up the engagement. We have a reasonably full agenda. Jonathan, I'm conscious that you need to shoot through at some point, and I'm also conscious that I've asked Kelly, and she said, "Oh, you know, we meet around about 2 hours." And I say, I think we might just go a wee bit over that for two reasons. One, at my first meeting of the training, I always like to perhaps give you a short sense of how I see a committee running. And I've already apologised to Jonathan because he's heard it before, because I spoke at the new mayor's school. And that will probably take us half an hour. It may be a bit shorter. We'll just see as we go through it. I've got about 2 or 3 slides I like to focus on. And also, when we get to the agenda, I'd just like to introduce that I think in PX we should have a short discussion about the tragedy at Kaihu and actually from a risk perspective how things going. So we might just be a wee bit longer than if it's traditionally 2 hours. So I hope that's okay. So with that, welcome. That gets me to the apologies. Okay, so folk, okay, they can stay for what's 10, let's say 12:30ish. Everybody's okay? Sweet. Do we have any other apologies? Perhaps we would note one in advance. You may have to slip out, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Chair. I will have to leave probably by 11 o'clock to attend to media matters.
Yeah. So if we could perhaps just therefore move that we just acknowledge to shoot through at 11. That'd be great. I'll move that. Do I have a second? Thank you, Luke. Looking my way, mate. My deputy. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Harry, thank you. Confirmation of the agenda. We do have the agenda in front of us, and last night I asked Jonathan and Jason about the wisdom, and I think it's appropriate that we have a verbal item under PX in light of the circumstances this week of the sad death in Kaihu. It's, I think, a logical thing for us to be doing as a risk committee, and also that it be done in PX. So I'm going to move that we confirm the agenda with the addition of a discussion around those events in PX. I'll move that. Do I have a second? Second? Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate that.
May I just check the wording of what you'd like?
That we include in PX a briefing on the events of the dog mauling in Kaihu. Is that okay with you, Rachel? Yeah, that makes sense. Good. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Hey, thank you, Snow. Great to hear your voice. That's superb. We have got a full agenda. Is there anything that you should note in terms of your interests in terms of the agenda? No? Can I just note one thing? My interests, and I do primarily a lot of advisory work, but they're just being settled. So I haven't been able to give Kelly a firm listing of, quite frankly, all my engagements. But I think it would be important to note 2 things for this meeting, Kelly. One is that I don't have any engagements, either in my role as risk chair or in my role as a consultant with anybody that I know of associated with CIPRA, or indeed here and up in the far north. Number one. Number two, in PX, there are 1 or 2 matters we were dealing with claims, and 1 or 2 of them involve MB. I have a son, my youngest son, who is in the determinations unit within MB, and I have today checked with him that he has no involvement in any matters associated with CIPRA. So I'd just like to do that. I will make a full declaration, Kelly, once I suspect in a couple of weeks my commitments are fully done, but suffice to say there's nothing here that should affect my participation or chairing. Rightio, public forum. Nobody has noted that they want to hear from public forum. So that gets us then to our first item, 3.1. By the way, sorry, if I do something that you guys think should be done differently, tell me, would you? I mean, I'm doing this the way I'm chairing, by the way, Jonathan. So if it's something, if I'm missing protocol, give me a yell. I'll correct my approach as we go through. But I'm just going to get through this until you guys say otherwise in my own good fashion. So we're into the Deloitte's report. Benny, great to have you here. Met you for the first time a couple of days ago, which was nice. So look, we have in front of us perhaps highlight key points you want to raise and we'll deal with it.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. What is in front of you, and I'll take it as read, is our standard constructive report to management. Some of the points that are in there have been raised in our report that was tabled at the adoption meeting. And what the report actually summarises is all the points that came out of the annual audit. And there's quite a few of them, so I'll be happy to take questions on them. There's quite a few. And what I'd say is the majority of them, the key focus of our audit is the annual report, being the financial statements, the statements of service performance. You look at it, a lot of that stems from that, things that we pick up as we go through the process, reconciliations, reviews, calculations, those sorts of things that we point out as just as part of the normal audit process. The other part of our role, and it's a key focus for the Auditor General as well, being a public benefit entity, is the controls around procurement in particular. It's across the board. And I think it's fair to say, you read it, the findings, there's quite a number of significant findings that we point out there. But when we look at a control framework, there's typically three things that we tend to look at. First of all, what's the design like? How is the system designed? So we've got weaknesses in the design. So, for example, one of the points we raise is a lack of a contract register, centralised register. The proximity of the finance team to the terms of the contract, so that creates a possible probability that accounting for the contract itself and the annual report could be wrong. Second of all, you look at, is the system actually operating, and has it been adhered to, in accordance with the policies and the way it's designed? Found, again, some significant breaches of that, point out some of the examples we found. The necessary approvals and authorizations not being obtained. The necessary legal reviews not being done, authority level spending limits being exceeded without, proper process being followed. Those are all things that are quite serious breaches. The control system's there, for a reason. But I think the one that stands out for us is the third element, is whether that system of internal control has been overridden, deliberately at any point in time. And unfortunately, there is instances that we found. We found an example of an elected member directly instructing a contractor to carry out work, and effectively that bypasses the entire internal control system. The internal control then becomes dependent on the contractor coming back to council saying, hey, got this instruction, can we do this, can we do that? That bypasses that. The combination creates a weak control environment that, quite frankly, exposes the organisation to financial loss. It could be exploited and possible fraud. So, wanted to raise that, and we raised that as a significant deficiency. We look at the audit that's coming for this coming financial year. We'll be going into that with that front of mind. There'll be a heavy emphasis on, the controls and what's been done around that. So, and whatever remediation actions we can take. So look, that's probably the key point on the letter I wanted to raise, but happy to take questions on that. But and these have been fed up to the Auditor General as part of our report with us to the Auditor General as well.
Thanks, Benny. That's quite sobering, and I suspect our councillors may well have some questions for you. So, folks, we have the report. There are two elements. There's obviously, we'll call it the constructive report. Sorry, it's a new phrase for me. The constructive report with quite hard-hitting comments that you've made there, Benny. Thank you. And I also note that with this paper, we have the additional fees that you are seeking. So for questions from the floor for the B. I wonder, Sue, if there's any response you could make. We've got your response to columns, but I just wonder if there's anything that you'd like to add, please.
Yeah, so in the procurement, the key thing that Benny has pointed out that we don't have is centralising the contracts. We do have all our capital contracts are kept in one place, but and all the major contracts come to council, but we actually have to and are looking at that at the moment at centralising all the systems. We have undertaken training to staff. Our system does stop us, because I got stopped yesterday, from authorising things. So the delegation levels are in our creditor system, so that that shouldn't be occurring. With the, it's notes about the engineer to contract, and that's already been fixed up.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Yeah, go for it, Rachel.
So when you have a report like this, do you actually give any timeframes that you think certain, red flagged items should be?
There's no,
Yeah.
so it's like, you fix these, some of these things, quite honestly, is easy fixes. Don't do it. This is the answer to some of them. Some of them might have practical, and we always say as soon as practically possible to do that. But there's no, I can't point you to a specific rule that says it's got to be, but we'd like to see some action, because we keep a track of, the open points. What's the progress been? The OAG does the same. What's the progress been in terms of remediating? We keep reporting it. But yeah, so there's no specific time frame, but as soon as possible.
And I guess that's for us to have a look at the other reports and note that things are moving through and
we'll all come back in the next round and say, well, this is what's happened, and give an update on each and every one of these points. And some of them have been remediated, we can close them off and they'll go as a closed point. But as long as they're not remediated or there's still work to be done, we'll report on progress against those.
Yes, John.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. With regard to the issue, which Sue was covered off on, the issue about the engineer to contract matter that you've raised, and that's obviously appropriate that that's been dealt with. I just kind of want to understand a little bit more around what those conflicts were specifically in terms of which contracts was the consultant to engineer to contract on, and also a project manager at the same time. And the reason for my question is that we are right in the middle of our most vital part of the construction season, and we've got a lot of technical work going on with slip repairs and all sorts of things like that. And so it's important to understand how we're going to have continuity in terms of the knowledge around those jobs, etc. So is there a list of the contracts that the consultant was an engineer to contract in, and a list of the projects that they were the project manager in, that we can sort of see side by side so we can understand how that all fits together?
So there is one. I don't have one in front of me, but the point that we're raising is that we clearly, we can't direct council and say this is what you have to do, all those decisions. What we're reporting on is we see any role in a general control environment, any role that is designed to have an oversight and execution element to it. Those roles, typically best practice and expectations from OAGs, that those rules or roles are kept separate. So irrespective of the contract or whatever, it's an observation about good, solid control.
That's more information that council staff could provide. Yeah. And so, I mean, the reason I raised the point is that they are, obviously there are operational decisions there, but if those things go off track because of a change, then we have some risk around our reputation as well. And one of the projects that we have been trying to deliver is a road called Keynes Road, which was to be upgraded by the 31st of March last year, and we ran out of time and ran over, and then it didn't get delivered, and we're trying to get it done this season, and we're heading towards March. So I just want to make sure we don't end up with that slippage.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's ultimately for council to decide how to respond. Our job is just to point out, not to evaluate the merits, decisions. But
Thanks very much.
our view is,
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I mean, look, obviously we're going to follow through your report closely in the way that you said, Rachel. I am conscious, and I guess I'm talking to my colleagues here, that when I look at the past audit recommendations, the procurement area is one that we've still got, well, whether completed or not, obviously a lot of recommendations. And so it is worthwhile that I think this committee, perhaps as a little objective, tries to make certain, soon we get these all paired up, but more importantly, we understand this. Because I think the other thing that I'd note here, Jonathan, by the way, I'm very happy you call me Bruce, by the way, rather than the chair, but if you want to call me the chair, that's fine. This is one of the key areas for our financial strategy. Procurement is one of the first tabs off the rank that is going to help us achieve our financial objectives. So I'm very interested to see that we have this as being tight, let alone also the objectives of, we want to deliver for our community as well. So I suspect with this, and quite frankly, your blunt comments this morning, Benny, that actually this is something this committee should probably have a bit of a focus on. At least to satisfy ourselves, have the assurance that the procurement risks are managed and indeed it fits within it contributes towards achieving our financial strategy. Okay. Is there anything we need to discuss about the extra fee?
I'm happy to take questions. Maybe just for context, the reason for that is, and I set it out in the paper, there's 3 elements to it. Look, the audit, we went in and we set a fee. Typically, that fee assumes that things will run smooth and effectively. It will get information that's of a good quality, that's auditable. We got into the audit with that in mind. Fortunately, resourcing that council put some constraints on, information, timing of that information. So we've been delayed. So I had to do things effectively a number of times, rework a couple of things. Annual report was one of those examples. And then finally, the biggest chunk of that comes from, concerns that have been raised with us during the audit process around, breaches of policy, potential fraud risks, and those sorts of things that require a very specific response from senior members of the team, lots of involvement from the OAG. So the hours that are there are real. And what we've done is we've worked through that in detail with the OAG, explain any inefficiencies on our part we've taken out, and what we put forward is what we consider to be a reasonable reflection of the effort that it's taken to complete the audits in time.
I understand from...
Look, much of that is hopefully as resourcing improves and we go through this more, and some of these things, get resolved, a lot of that is entirely avoidable.
Thank you for your notes. I just want to understand actually the process. Has this been accepted or are we in a negotiation period?
No, it's been accepted. What Benny said is correct. We had new team members and there was a tight deadline. We didn't have only partway through the year was a water, didn't have an asset management team, and only partway through the year was a water and services asset manager appointed. We've now got that working really well where finance is working with the asset manager because we have to have their asset management plans agreeing to the reconciliation, agreeing to the fixed assets register. Roading, we're not quite there yet. We've only just appointed someone in that, and the council will be aware that roading was restructured last year. We had a number of vacancies and we didn't fill the asset manager till the end. Then there was so that was the key part of the fixed assets. And then there were additional, we didn't have a final copy out to the auditors early enough, and then there was refreshers. And then you've got the other OAG matters.
Look, that's fine. It's fine. I understand that, and they are objective issues both at a management level to deal with and also for you as to deal with. So appreciate the clarity around the fee. Benny, I take it this is just a question. I take it we will receive your audit plan for the 25-26 year. We haven't got that yet?
No, we haven't got it yet, but I can touch on it briefly, what you're likely to see in it.
I'm not too worried about that right at the moment. Send it when you got a draft and I'll be keen to look at it. But all I'm expecting is at our next meeting, we have that.
Yeah, absolutely. What you'll have there is the proposed engagement letter, the fee proposals, the audit plan, which will incorporate some of these things.
So what I'd like to have as a discussion then is actually, I always like to have those discussions. I mean, we need to receive and agree to what your plans are, Benny. But to me, it's as much a question of actually, are we organised right? How do we, quite frankly, avoid these issues? And what's the project management plan to get us to it? So I'm not so ambitious about time, but I am ambitious about actually, are we able to get to a dedicated date with an effective plan in place, with delivery and with you, through your easily. So I wanted to signal I'll be keen to do that at our next meeting. I make some assumption that
you're 100% correct.
And your plan is the sort of the key point for that.
And probably leading on to that is the other thing that's coming up on the horizon is the LTP audit that will be sort of the back end of the year.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
we need to be mindful of that as well.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And in fact, thank you for raising that, because it'll be another thing for us, the committee, to transact, which is actually the arrangements around the LTP. Hey, that's brilliant. Folk, obviously, I'm unfortunately going to hear my voice probably a bit today. Is there any other questions you guys would like to raise at this point, or comments you'd like to make, Rachel? No? Can we go to the resolution, please, which is that we note the constructive report in attachment A. Have a mover for that, please. Jonathan, thank you. Seconder? Thanks, Luke. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Gary, thank you. Thanks, Snow. Always good to hear your voice. And again, as I say, Snow, I'd encourage you, got any questions, please raise them. Benny, thank you for that. You're welcome to stay. I am used to auditors being in my committee to the extent that you like. If you've got to shoot through, I understand that entirely.
If it's okay, I'd love to stay, but I have other commitments today, so I'd appreciate if I could excuse myself.
Well, look, thank you for being here. I would just like to signal, I think I might have said to you the other day, my expectations as we develop our program is that we should have committee-only time with you. And I think we should either restart or we should have that practice, but we'll do that with our next meeting. Because I think it's important for councillors and you to have direct access with one another without staff around.
No,
we're good. I haven't planned for it today and I'm not going to change my plans, but we'll do it that way. Okay, thank you, buddy. You have a safe trip. Yeah, if we can move on to 3.2, which is too much of my voice, but I think we wouldn't be a bad thing to have. But it's you first, I know. Appreciate that.
Okay. So this is presenting you with the work program for the year. So you can see we've got 4 meetings and what you're likely to be presented with. There is a lot to go through. We cover lots of policies, all the risk, and from different audits, and where we see in public excluded, we have the 10 top risks being to discuss. But this is our program. At times we'll have Deloitte in. They come in usually 2 or 3 times a year, and we have different staff presenting. So this is just to give you an idea of what is going to be presented to you each meeting, but it's usually quite a full agenda.
Yes, I can, and it needs to be, but that's good. This is tremendous. So thank you for you and Kelly getting this together. I think it's actually really important. Again, I presume we're only doing what you've always normally done. Are there any sort of thoughts or comments folk would have around our work program for the year? May feel really to ask that question to prove what I've got to say, but that's fine. Luke, anything from your side, mate?
Sorry, did you ask me?
Yeah. Right.
I'm still learning. I'm just a lot, that's all.
Okay, look, we're going to take this as read if that's okay, Sue. I'll be honest, I do have a couple of comments, but they're nothing here that is fundamental to the program that's here, just some nuances that I think can be brought into it. But it's a great program. If we can at the end of the year say we've done all this and done it right, we're in a good position. So that's superb. Okay, unless there's any other comments, we'll move on. Brilliant. So anything else, or will I get into my little piece?
No?
Okay, brilliant. Look, I'd just like to divert us for a wee bit, just to rock through a wee bit of how I see the world of audit, risk and finance. That's why I get my right title here. Committee here for COPRA. So look, what I'd like, so firstly, I'd like to know, first, Snow, you can see what we're sharing on the screen? Brilliant. I see. I think that's a thing. I think that's a thumb up. I think it's a thumb.
Yeah, no, I can see it. Thanks.
Great, mate. So, as I said, and I'm apologising, Jonathan, he's seen this before because it's based around, broadly speaking, the new mayor school. There are a whole bunch of slides here. I'm not going to go through them all, but there are about 3, I think, roughly, that I would like to rock through. We'll just go to the next slide that you're showing there, please. So, look, I'm going to use the word create, or the phrase create value twice, but with different meanings. The first thing I want to use the phrase create value with is, why are we here? Why are we existing as a committee? And really it comes back to, in terms of, and we've just looked at the program, albeit quickly, if we do this, are we adding value to your governance? So the critical thing is, if we aren't as a committee adding value, you have to put a question mark, why do we exist? And so at the end of the year, we'll sit down and do a self-assessment, at the very least, and say, have we created value in our area, in our lane, which of course is obviously risk, assurance, and finance. We must be contributing something into the overall governance of council, otherwise we're wasting time. Okay, so the first thing we must do is create value as a committee. That's quite scary to do a self-assessment, because certainly as an independent, I feel that might be a report on me, but it's not about me. It's actually about us, and collectively, do we add value into it? The second, so that's the first form of creating value. The second form of creating value is actually you as councillors and as a combined council are wanting to create value, deliver on the opportunities that are in front of you and the community of Kaipara. And that's the starting place for this committee to do its work. So it's about the opportunities, what you want to do for your community, which is the starting point for this committee. Because risk is only trying to look into the future and anticipate what will stop you from achieving your objectives. So my working presumption is that the current 10 big risks are the things that are going to stop, if they occurred in some form, are going to stop you from achieving your objectives. Okay, so the objectives, the opportunities, the value you want to create for your community is our starting point. It actually means, amongst other things, again, it comes back to the work program. So, Jonathan, your annual plan is going to be really important, because actually your annual plan this year, and it's going to be more formal with the LPP, obviously next year, is setting out your hopes and aspirations for what council wants to deliver. As a committee, we need to grab that and recognise this is your view about value for this community. We need to make certain our work as a committee tries to anticipate what would stop council from achieving that. Okay, so that's actually really important, you know, and if I could put it in a very simple way, and it's not picking on finance, Sue, but if you go back to that previous item with Benny and about the annual report, I assume, and it's that you want to be a transparent council, therefore we want to get a good set of accounts out. So actually what could stop us? And one of the things that I can say clearly, but if I've heard it correctly, stopped you last time, it was the adequacy of the resourcing of the council, the ability to attract staff. And if I read the top risk register right, that's actually a recurrent theme. So it's relevant that as a committee that we would look at that as a significant risk. And for us to work through that, because if we are managing, sorry, I've got to be careful when I come back to that word governing that risk right, that's going to give us the best chance to achieve what we want to do here, which is a small but honourable objective of being transparent in front of our community. Okay, so it starts with actually, what do you guys want to achieve? Actually, and I should be careful, it's what you with your other colleagues, the full council, want to achieve. From that, we start to drive actually our work, which is what are the things that will stop us. So actually what that says, by the way, with the work program is once, Jonathan, you and the team work through an annual plan, we should probably sit down in a workshop situation and just check that our big strategic risks are on the right scale. So first thing is we create value as a committee. We also create that value by knowing what is it that you want to do for your community, and that's the starting jumping off point for our piece of work. Second point, risk governor. You and I are not risk managers. Jason, and you and your successor are a risk manager. Sue, you're a risk manager. I'm not. Okay, so our role is in the area of governance, not management. Not a big drama. It's not something that actually, I want to sort of create heavily, but I do want to reflect that while this committee has a lot of looking into an organisation that it governs, it is at a governance level rather than as a management level. And we'll come back to that because it's actually a really important point somewhere further in track. I do have a few slides here about understanding the principles. I'm going to just go through one slide on that, which hopefully makes it pretty simple. I do want to talk a wee bit about working with staff. This committee achieves nothing if we can't work with staff. The final point, I won't get there, but somewhere down the track, this is again an important part to actually the role of the committee, but any maturity review, do we do risk well, says actually risk is integrated into all decision making. So it'll be something that we should check as we go on a wee bit further. Let's just go to the next slide. In fact, the next slide after that. So just a key point, this is what I just want to reference and come back to creating value. Your strategy, called the annual plan, called the long-term plan, is actually your statement of this is the value I'm going to create for this community. It does mean that actually if you want to achieve something, there are risks associated with that. We need to identify those. But equally, we also know, working in local government, there are externalities that create risk to our strategy. And I don't mean in a political way, but local government reform is a significant challenge, I would like to argue, to us. And we might find the merits, I don't know what the rate increase you might be anticipating this year, Jonathan, is. I can assure you most councils are above 4%. But the externality of a probability of a rate capping regime is creating substantial risk to the strategies of local government. I say that as a generality. I'm not saying it specifically about Piper. I'm still not close enough to get to that point. But you understand what I'm saying. We want to go after an objective that has attendant risk, but also while we're after that, there may be things out here that risk derailing our strategy. We should be aware of those as well. Just simple points, but hopefully that's helpful. We need to identify, our role is to identify those work with Sue and the team to make certain that we have got appropriate controls over them and be able to provide assurance to your council that we're tickety-boo. Okay? By the way, jump in, push in, tell me if I've got it wrong. If this doesn't fit Piper, I'm very, very comfortable to have that debate. Let's not, well, two things here to take away from this, two key things. I mean, there's the finance role, and these slides don't quite deal with the finance role, but we can come back to that when we don't directly have a finance report today. That'll come back to us later on, and we can talk more about that. But I want to come back to this two things. Our role is to have foresight, to anticipate those things that if they happened would stop us achieving, stop council achieving what it wants to do for the community. The other role, and it's in the shaded box, is to get assurance that the controls, particularly management, have put in place are working. So that's why on our work program, and I'm grateful again for Sue for that work program, we have got the internal audit function and other things like Benny being here. He's given us a reasonably direct conversation and comments about procurement today. A whole bunch of other things that can come through to this committee, which we need to look at and use to gain assurance that actually we're in the best position that these risks will not affect us. Okay, so risk, identify, get assurance that actually our system is working right. Any thoughts on that? Okay, pretty straightforward. Actually, no, you know what? You do this in your normal life, don't you? When you've got an objective in front of you, you count the cost, and B, you work out how do I make certain it happens, and nothing stops me. That's all we're doing here, in a sense, although we've got to make it a bit more than just being ad hoc. Okay, thanks, Kelly. So this is the closest I'll get to trying to break down at this point the issue of risk governance and management in terms of principles. I want to reflect, our starting position is what? It's a question to you guys. What's our starting position? It is, Luke? Oh, sorry, I thought it'd be a hand up, sorry. What's the starting position? It's the O word, it's the opportunity, it's what you're trying to create. What's the value you're trying to create? That's our starting position. So from that, we get into this cycle of, so what's the risk? And we try and, risk can get used too many ways. But we use phrases like, what keeps us awake at night? What could stop us? What are the barriers? That's really what it is. So we're going to do that, and we've got the top 10, and I'm suggesting that actually post the annual report, we need to check in, the annual plan, we need to just check in that actually what we see as the big risks are indeed the big risks. So we're looking for Sue and the team to management to deal with the next box, which is to do a risk assessment. So if it is, and I've already mentioned it, resourcing is a significant issue, actually they need to give us an assessment of what that is. In fact, again, this has become part of the program, on a cyclical basis, we'll want to sit in this room and do what is called a deep dive with Sue and the team to understand that risk assessment. Okay, and I'll come back to the reasons why that's actually really important. We need to understand it, we're governors, and these are the big things that count. We need to understand we need to put a wee bit of science into our risk assessment, which is actually what tells us whether we're on track or not. What tells us whether we're on track or not with having adequate resource? We've already seen an indicator today.
Maybe in the audit report.
Yeah, it could be in the audit report. We've got a demand which we've got to exceed, which is paying extra audit fees. And the reason Sue, thank you for the transparency, is the challenge of attracting staff. So in this situation, we might want to, when we look at the reports going forward, have the indicators of which could be staff turnover. could be the latest staff engagement score. Those things start to give us, as governors, let alone the executive management team, an insight into are these risks affect us? And there are all the peripheral things like, you know, the auditor says, gee whiz, you guys haven't got it right and charge you a bit more. So we need those indicators. Now, the question is, I don't know what your current turnover rate is at the moment. Let's not worry about it. I'll give an example. Post-COVID, one of my councils had a staff turnover rate of nearly 30%. So each year, roughly a third of the staff were turning over. Now, that is not good. You have no corporate, well, I should be careful. You risk bleeding and losing corporate knowledge. And particularly as we see in our local government area, that often is in key areas. What are the, well, perhaps accountants, Sue, are hard to find these days, I don't know. Water treatment operators, I think, are an area that I hear around the country is tough. It's been at various stages. Your building and resource consenters and planners are difficult to find. So if that 30% is all coming in one area, you've got significant risks. Management clearly need to have strategies to deal with that, but we as governors need to understand that because it's going to stop us from achieving what we need to achieve. Now, the question is, given my council, I won't name it, 30%, it was nearly 30%, I think it was 28. Actually, what would we accept? In other words, what would be our appetite to accept the variance? Is a turnover rate of what, 15% okay? It's a question. Jason, what would you accept as think is reasonable?
I think a healthy turnover rate is around 11 to 15.
Why is it healthy?
Because you do need new skills, new thinking, new ideas, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But anything above that, it can get quite problematic. And because of the reason you identified your loss of IP, your loss of process, your loss of knowledge. And in local government, it is difficult because it is a quicker place as well. So you do lose that quite quickly. I acknowledge the conversation you're having and acknowledge the risk that you're providing there. It's fair.
So I want to just latch onto that. So, I mean, it could be, and I'd be looking to, you know, my chief executive and team for advice, to have a turnover rate of, say, 10, you even as high as 15%, which probably most of my councils would advise me is reasonable because of the advantages of a level of turnover and the fact that you're never going to have a static workforce. Okay, so our risk appetite might be, if we've got an indicator that says, let's say, take it to the extreme, 15%, we're okay, more or less. Let's assume it's not 15% in water treatment and wastewater treatment plant operates, okay? But on that assumption, we've got a general turnover. We might say that's okay, we can live with that. And it's not stopping us from delivery of service to our community and achieving what we want to do. But risk appetite is all about actually, so what if it's 20% or 25%? Then we are out of appetite. And it gets you, and this is a governance role, it gets you to the next box. If we are out of appetite over these big risks, we must make a decision. Something has to happen. Otherwise, why would you ignore it? Why would you live with 28%? Because actually you are bleeding and you are going to be stopped from doing what you want to achieve, especially at a management level, because they can't deliver on what you want to have achieved. And you, when you want to be accountable to your community, are going to be difficult because actually you haven't got the resource in place. Okay, so this is simply what risk is all about. What do we want to achieve? What's going to stop us? What does that assessment look? What does that risk look like? How do we know whether the risk is improving or deteriorating? What can we live with? What is you know, the appetite we can handle with this? And if actually it's outside appetite, we need to do something. That's our work program in a nutshell. That's what you signed up for, to be on this committee. Okay, it's good fun. We'll make it good fun, but it's also serious, if I can put it that way as well. That's the simple part of how we're going to go about it. So that means when we look at the work program, particularly the emphasis around the quarterly reporting around risks becomes really important, and the work that we drive off that. Okay, brilliant. Let's keep going. I think there's probably only one more slide I want to deal with. So we'll come back to risk appetite at some other stage. I'm not too worried about that. Keep going, Kelly, and keep going. Let's not worry about the risks. I can assure you the top 10 we have are pretty consistent with the rest of the world. Keep going, one more. I just want to reflect here that what we look at in terms of the top 10 risks, which, you know, in a sense I'm equating with being a governor, doesn't excuse us from having a responsibility for all the risks that are being run by this organisation. I don't know what the activity or operational risk profiles look like, Sue, but my experience is that actually there is a whole bundle underneath an organisation that you folk will be managing. Believe it or not, we as governors are accountable for that, but we can't have all the risks. This organisation runs at this table at one time. We don't have the time, we only meet quarterly. That's sort of roughly the right time for a risk committee to meet. So our role is not only to be focused on those things that could move the dial if they were to occur, in other words, were to crystallise. We actually have to understand the systems and processes that management have controlling all risks. And again, our internal audit role, function, is an insight into actually those controls are working. So, you know, when we're dealing with a big risk, it's always important to actually have the risk owner here. The risk owner probably wouldn't be a Jason or a Sue, could be, but it's whoever is the risk owner, so we can understand how those controls are going on. The other thing that's really important with this diagram is the column. You probably can't read it too much. I can't, from my eyes are a bit poor. It says emerging or emerging risk. One of the things that we need to keep our eye on, because this goes back to foresight. Can you not read it, Michael? Sorry, it says emerging, mate. My slides hopefully are available to anybody that wants to look at them. There's nothing confidential about these ones.
They're in the agenda.
Yeah, they're in the agenda pack. Thanks, Kelly. There's actually, we need, you know, the foresight is we need to look at what out into the future creates uncertainty. It becomes really important that, again, as a committee, that we have the discussion with staff, what's on the horizon, or even better, what's just over the horizon that might hit us. We should be trying to keep that sort of thinking in mind. So when we deal with our risk environment, it's not just what we see in front of us, that the foresight to think what might be coming further down the track. It becomes a really important part for us as a committee. Okay, final slide. This one's slightly, I always, it's interesting the reaction I sometimes get of people on this one. How do we work with staff? I've said it's important. This committee, no risk committee works without staff. Now, I use a phrase there which is really important and has to be seen in the right light, which is constructive tension. Okay, my role, along with you, is, and I'm going to use this advisory, I want to qualify it in lots of ways, is to hold management's feet to the fire. The risk committee is a privileged position where generally we should, well, the test of it is that we are asking searching questions of management. Okay, it is important that if this is what we want to achieve, that if this is what is going to stop us, we get assurance that it's actually under control. Good governance is doing that by questioning management. I've got 3 rules in doing that, and these are mine and I bring them, and I'm asking everybody to abide by that. Number 1, I don't know of any manager that comes to work with the view of doing a bad job. So I implicitly trust management advice. Now, my role is to test that, but I trust management's advice. I'm asking you to trust management and the advice they give us. The second rule I have is play the ball, not, how does it go? Play the ball, not the person. Thank you. I can say the man, but you're much better than I am, Luke. In other words, don't kill a messenger. Okay, my rule is we deal with the issue. We've got trouble attracting accountants. We don't tackle Sue because she's bringing the message. We say, I hear you, Sue. Let's work on that. The third rule I have is actually we create a good environment here is if we can respect, if we can deal with the issue, and if we are solution focused. Now, I expect staff as our free and frank advisors coming to a committee to not only state the problem, but to presumably have thought through what are the possible options to resolve it. But I'm also asking you to be solution focused. You know, it creates an environment, a culture of this committee. And I want to use a little word which I sometimes have always found a bit naff, but I think it's really important. If we respect, if we focus on the issue, if we're solution focused, the environment in this room is safe. It has to be safe for people to come and talk to us because we want them to be direct with us. Okay? It feels a bit like a sermon, and it might be. Take it as a sermon if you have to. But it's the way, quite frankly, I'll look to chair my meetings. I have been in environments, and I'm not going to name the councils, where it has not been safe for staff to come. We don't want to be like that at Coira. If we are, we'll fall over. Right, that's me. I don't want to do any more slides. Not that I don't want to, I'm happy to, but I think for the sake of the meeting, knowing that we've got a slightly shortened view, those are sort of my sort of opening comments that I'd like to do. The slides are all there, and you're most welcome to come back to me if you've got any questions as far as that's concerned. But at this point, any comments or thoughts at the stage? I think that's what I said. I think that's what I said to you guys at the new mayor's school, Jonathan, but your hands.
Well, thank you, Bruce, and you did, and that certainly resonated with me down there, and I'm pleased to have the committee have this sort of valuable overview at the beginning of the term, because we do need to be focused, and we do need to have a strategy, and we need to decide what we most want to achieve and how much risk we want to take in achieving it. And I think we're in a good position to start that process now.
Thank you. Well, like, you know, I'm promising a lot in some sense by putting these slides up. So the professional pressure on me, Jonathan, is to deliver with you guys. But I mean, we end of the game, we'll have a bit, as I say, we'll have a bit of fun. And ultimately, I hope provide value to the council as a whole. So I think that's useful. Look, with that, just to move it on, I just think we just need to go to the resolution, which was way back in the papers, which is literally that we just note the work programme. And I guess in doing so, you got a flavour of how I'm keen as a committee we approach that work programme. I'm going to move from the chair that we adopt that work programme. Not seconder, please. Thank you, Rachel. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carry. Thank you very much. Thanks, Snow.
And I'll just note that Councillor Nathan has joined the meeting now.
Oh, cracker.
He hasn't got a camera on, there we go.
Hi there, how are you? Nice to see you. As I say, oh, I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
I'm so sorry, Whānau. I've been literally chasing my tail a little bit, so my apologies. I'm here.
No worries, Josephine. Look, welcome to the meeting. I'm, as I said to Snow, I'm probably the one unfamiliar face. My name's Bruce Robertson, so hopefully we get to see you in person next time round. I look forward to that. But please feel free to be part of the whole meeting, Josephine. You're welcome here. So we're into some of the more sort of necessary and crunchy points, Sue. So we move on to the quarterly debtors report. That'd be great, please.
Mrs. Christine Toms is going to.
Christine. G'day, Christine. How are you?
Morning, I'll take the paper as read. We're looking at a different time frame on this report as previous committee reports. We're just out by a month. So it makes comparing previous to now a little bit challenging. So I've looked at the debt as at the 1st of July 25 and comparing it to 31st of December 25, and we can see a reduction of 1.5 million in the rates debt over the last 6 months. We're noting a challenging environment. There's a fair bit of severe hardship around. We've got limited tools to assist with that. Land rate arrears debt category table that's in the report. It shows the detail of how much debt sits with the various categories. Further information about each category and the collection process methods are available for each. I did go into some detail about which each one is, just for those councillors who aren't aware of the different categories. It made sense. I don't know if you want me to go into detail around that.
I'll test that with the committee, Christine. If they need more detail, we'll see if we've got a questioning. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So other than that, I think I'll just leave it for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And look, just to refer back to your point about the detail, I do appreciate that. It's actually really valuable that we can all be on the same page about what are the context and conditions around the individual data categories. So, folks, other questions you'd like to raise with Christine here about our data position? Yeah, Paul.
Through the chair. So, end of December, 4.7 and a bit million, is that right?
End of December, yes, 4.7.
Sort of usual this time of year?
Like this, it is quite usual. I should have, you asked the question, even though we weren't comparing to December last year, I could have given you some detail around what it was previous years. So maybe I'll do that next time, but it's sitting in a fairly good situation now. Yeah.
And this is just arrears amounts. It's not just where people have, it's actually overdue.
It's overdue, it's as at, so anyone who hasn't paid their rates this year is not included in this lot. We just include the debt that is a year old. Well over. It's at the 1st of July, yeah.
Oh, Snow, thank you. Snow, your question, mate, your comment.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if my hand was being seen, but I suppose just to tag on to what Luke was asking around that 4.74 million in rates arrears. What realistically do you think is recoverable in the next 12 to 24 months, and what proportion do you think might represent a longer debt risk?
Did you catch? Oh, we had trouble hearing you.
I think he's asking how much of that is realistically recoverable.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So I think we talk about the Murray freehold land and the practice there. Because you've got 1.9 of the 4.7, he's talking about the 4.7 and how much is recoverable. The two big items there are Murray freehold land and charging water in place. So maybe talk about those and land and what resources you have and what's happening there.
Okay, so with multi-freehold land, a lot of that is not recoverable. We don't have the standard processes of being able, with general land, we can sell the properties if we take them through the legal process. And multi-freehold land is unique in that it can't be sold in that way. So we engage as much as possible with the owners of the land and encourage payment, or if they're not using the land, we change it to non-rateable as per the Act. So we try and reduce the debt in that way. We're finding with our engagements through with the owners that some people are willing to pay, they just don't want to know they can't deal with the debt. So the law change in 2020 or 2022, sorry, I've forgotten the year. allows us to write that debt off if it's unrecoverable. So that gives them a clean slate going forward. And we have quite a few of those situations, which is really positive to see. We've got quite a few sitting in our charging order in place. We've got about $1 million sitting in there. The next process for those would be rating sales. That is where, so they're sitting in a position where we've got judgment. We would need to go to the court to request a rating sale. These are properties where people are living in them. Councils often step away from doing that process for political reasons, but that's entirely the council's decision. If the council wanted to go down that process to receive that $1 million, that's an option. Another thing about that is that if the property was to sell, we have charging orders on it, sell the property, they pay that debt back to us.
Hey, look, thank you for that detail. I suppose, like, I knew some of that, and I had read that in the briefing papers. I suppose my question was around what do you think is the proportion of that 4.7 that would represent that longer structure on the debt risk. So do you have a sort of a figure, do you think? I know you've got the Māori land aspect, which is, X amount, and that probably fits in part of that profile. I'm just wondering if you have do you have a proportion that you think is more that longer term?
We do, as part of our annual report, allow for doubtful debts. So I can't remember the percentage that we have. So we have a percentage of that. Generally speaking, the debt that we've got is easier to collect when it's newer. So, and we've done mortgage process here, which has reduced it quite considerably. I'd say we're going to carry a lot of this through into next year. We add penalties to this as well, which increases the debt. So we've got the debt growing rather than reducing a lot of, it's growing faster than we can reduce it in some respects. Jessie might give us some information.
Confirming we do provide 100% doubt over all Māori land, and the other rating revenue is very marginal loss, so 1% potentially.
Right,
yes,
thank you.
Appreciate that. From the freehold land, we have extensive powers. I'm interested in your point. They are also powers that we have a level of discretion as to how we implement them. But Luke, I'm sure, like me, if it's not in our bank, it's in somebody else's, and in some way we have to cover. Somebody else within the community is paying for that doubtful debt. Okay, thank you for that, Christine. That's really helped. Any other questions folk would have in relationship to the debt situation? The remaining debt is obviously of a lesser amount, your consents and what have you. But I think I talk from some comfort that you've got appropriate processes in place around trying to minimise that. Although some of it might be hard to get because we don't have the same tools. Right? Okay, cracker. Any other questions or comments? I wonder if then we could move to the resolution, please. We note the quarterly debtors report. We'll have a move in a second. Appreciate that, mate. Second. Thank you. Appreciate that, Luke. All those in favour, please say aye. Gary.
Aye.
What is Jessie Ellison will present?
Jessie, thank you. I don't know why I didn't say why I said before we didn't have a finance report. That was really bad on my part, so I apologise for that. So there's something I don't know what it is, but anyway, we won't go there. Jessie, welcome to the meeting. I'm Bruce. Welcome.
Good morning.
Nice to have you here.
Our committee. So we're just looking at the finance reports. Quite interesting because council hasn't actually seen this report yet. Normally it's after council has seen it. The report that you have is for the December financial period, and what we're really seeing is just we're well over budget when it comes to subsidy revenue. That's largely due to roading subsidies and some additional subsidies that we're able to negotiate with NZTO over and above what we had budgeted, which is good news. And then the bad news would probably be in the expenditure where we are significantly under in employee costs, just reflecting those vacancies that we have. And again, finance costs, which is expected in the CapEx, is so far behind. And the large reasons we're under in activity expenditures in our professional services and contractor space. So I'm just happy to take questions.
Thank you, Jessie. Appreciate that. Just one question from me, just a big one at this stage. When do we do a forecast for year end? I presume at some point you sit down and try and work out what the forecast result will be.
We don't have the time to do that. We have never been able to do that in the last few years. It's always been on our wish list to get that done. But with annual plans, long-term plans, and the resourcing that's depleting us for annual report, we just simply can't get there. And it's not just us in finance, it's also across the managers probably aren't having the time either.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Is the situation at the moment? Okay.
The chair, I just say that the managers have done a line-by-line review for their annual plan work. So they should have a more idea of what the year's going to end up like.
And just to add to that, we do report monthly on projects, and which is the key driver of cash flow. So they do report about how those are going.
I think it's all somewhere else you'll work on the cash flow. I hear your point about resourcing. We're going to come back to that as the biggest issue, I suspect, under risk. So that's fine. Thank you, Jessie. Okay, Frank, do you have questions for Jessie on the results? Yes, Lou?
Just one through the chair, thank you. You said that employee benefits are substantially down on your budget, but it's only a 5% drop.
28.
Only a 5% drop year to date compared to year to date budget.
That was significantly down last year too. So I guess it's comparable. Just highlighting that's where our underspends are.
Mr. Chair, it's probably good to provide some context there maybe, actually. So in the previous financial year, in the previous term, we were required to save 8% of the remuneration budget. So 1.5 mil. So the financial year before that, we were significantly underspent because of obviously that change. And that was the council decision that drove that primarily. And the budget is closer. We're still up at about 23 vacancies now. And the majority of them in the last couple of months. So prior to that, we were tracking reasonably well as far as vacancies go and keeping up to that speed. But it is starting to bite the organisation internally and our capacity to do stuff. So it is making a difference with such a high level of vacancies, 23 out of 170.
Any other questions or comments? I Jessie, like to look at this, and as I develop my familiarity, and I'm sorry if I asked a tough question or perhaps the one about forecasting, because I'm very conscious that that as a committee, from a finance perspective, we keep in mind what our original financial strategy was. Now, in some sense, the budget is the evidence of that strategy. Although I do tend to want to go back to what the idea was in terms of the LTP. So I'm always interested then, there's sometimes the more small or modest parts of the budget, but they actually can be important when I get them. So things like the contributions, which are down $710,000. Okay, so the budget is roughly 5% of the total revenue. I'm telling you, it's like X here. I know that.
It's all right.
But if that's down, it's not a question of fault about management, because the economic conditions that are out there. But it automatically starts to say to me, well, gee whiz, are we going to be able to see our financial strategy through? Or do we have to start thinking nimbly, do we need to change our financial strategy?
Yeah, so a couple of things in contributions, just to note, it's come up a couple of 100,000 when you get to the January report, but a lot of the revenues that we have in contributions are deferred. When the budgets were set, they were based on the expected number of lots that we were going to get in Mangawhai, and the largest contribution revenue does come from the central Mangawhai area, so we're just not seeing the growth that we were predicting. And that's important when you come to your LTP assumptions soon. make sure you don't repeat that. I do know that the contribution revenue budget for the annual plan 27 is being reduced to be more in line with what we're actually getting. And yeah, that's what I would have to say about that.
Which possibly has the other side that we're carrying debt in relationship to infrastructure. And depends how you work the contributions. But again, all I'm trying to reflect, what is, you know, I'm thinking, you know, that as well as I do, numbers are only telling us what is the underlying story. And it's to think through, so what are the implications for us? Because, you know, if we're having to dial back our assumption now on, you know, what we forecast the situation to be now in terms of contributions, it's going to have an impact on our strategy.
Impact will be contribution revenue flows through to our growth reserves. So you will have less funds to do your growth infrastructure expenditure, and that in turn impacts growth. So it can have quite a big impact to council. And it's possibly not just us. I'd say it would be across the New Zealand with the RMA reform and all of these economical factors affecting growth as well, interest rates, uncertainty, etc.
So, and you're correct, the biggest amount of debt we've got relates to our development contribution.
That's right.
Because we've invested the capital beforehand, and the people haven't, the lots haven't been subdivided.
Yeah. Now, whether that means we have to change our strategy other than lowering our expectations, I don't know. But it does mean that we have notionally a residual amount of debt here, which is difficult to deal with other than by having some other form of income to cover it. It creates a challenge. So it's only to as I say, to understand the picture and then to be thinking forward.
I do think revenue would be an option to look at. I've always felt that way, especially with local what's coming up.
Yeah.
Need to protect our existing revenues.
So we have quite a lag between when a resource consent is put into council and when you can actually get because you can see Mangawhai Central, there's 728 lots, but in actual fact, until the title gets issued, which can be up to 5 years later, then you don't actually see the development or the financial contributions. So that's the challenge we have. We know development's coming because we can see there's Mangawhai Hills, there's Mangawhai Rise, and Moonlight Heights, but it's the stages are not coming through as actual lots, so we can't get the money in.
There does seem to be some deferrals and agreements with the developers as well that could be impacting the revenue.
Yeah.
So though, if these sections aren't being titled, we don't have the extra people here requiring the growth, right? Fair comment? We assume that they will line up eventually.
Look, let's see if that's the assumption. Yeah.
Look at what's happening out there in the market. It's really depressed. So it's based on the growth that we're getting. I think we're looking at a pretty static period.
It's a very difficult line to budget because it can be a really cyclical thing and you can get a big whack in a lot in a short time.
And sometimes we are. I mean, in this case, this comes back to my idea, but the concept of risk, doesn't it? We want to achieve this. Sometimes external factors, in this case, that you are at the mercy of the development community and in their sense of the economy as to whether you can achieve your objectives or not. So it becomes a question that possibly it's not that we can. Okay, no, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, Luke.
Just one more, if that's right. Can you just run me through the other comprehensive revenue and expense items or not being reclassified subsequently to surplus?
Yes. Something that makes way more sense at year end because we do not revalue our infrastructure until year end. When the budgets were set, we made an assumption that there'd be about 50 million increase each year, and it's just there because that is the format that the annual report takes, and I suppose I probably just wouldn't look at those bottom two lines until year end.
But they take the revaluation of our assets almost as an income or a revenue, not a revenue stream, but effectively a revenue stream.
It doesn't impact rates. It's just going to impact our reported revenue that we have to report.
By definition, it is other income.
Yeah.
So we have to report.
The accounting standards, Luke. So
yeah,
we have to report like any other business, but it doesn't mean that impacts rates at all.
Mm.
There's not money coming in.
You can't cash it in.
Unless we could sell it. I agree.
It's a quite a good point, I think, just to think about it though, because we are seeing much greater increases in our assets than we have predicted. And that actually is a big risk to council to maintain those and to create those because it's showing reflecting increased costs. So, yeah.
Oh, you got your hand up.
Just have a question around the capital delivery program, and I note that it's sitting at 32%, and sort of just wondering, is there confidence that that program's going to be met, or is there a risk that we'll deliver under that budget again?
I can confirm that as of January, the percentage completion has rose to 34%. I do believe we're on track to exceed our CapEx. We're probably on track to achieve the largest CapEx spend we ever have. However, no, I don't believe we'll achieve this budget whatsoever. It's very ambitious.
Yeah, I read the $29 million carryover and I thought, hello, we're gonna struggle. I suspect I'm not laughing at Kuiper, but I'm just saying here goes the problem for all of us in the sector.
It really needs to be.
It needs to be almost zero-based, doesn't it?
Managers are very ambitious as to what projects they see putting in their budgets, but then when it comes to sometimes they're multi-years, and we have had a backlog, and what happens is during the last 3 years we had government making handouts to us, and therefore you have to take up the money and you put the projects in, and you've suddenly got shovel-ready projects. You've suddenly got a lot more projects you're working on that's bigger than your whole organisation. So there's a catch-up because we, at the moment, in doing the projects. So we're hoping it does get down, because the normal that we've worked out as finance is probably only 40 million that we can actually do in a year, isn't it?
It's been 30, 36 in the previous couple.
And, it's 80 million there.
So again, I mean, I in preaching, I want to look behind the numbers, and the numbers are saying you've got a $80 million capital program because you've got an objective of delivering services to your community. You can't deliver 80 million, you're not delivering on what you want to do. So, the question is, what is the strategy? What is the adjustment you make? Are you comfortable with that? The answer is probably not no, but actually the question becomes, so what do we do about it? I mean, I don't think we're going to be doing that today, but I'm just trying to reflect. They're going to be less in the way of subsidies, I suspect. You probably are going to be thinking this more with the annual plan, or probably more like with the LTP. Can we go forward with $80 million budgets? We are setting ourselves up far, aren't we?
That's right. And next next month, the council will see the capital. We've already shown the capital program that's been put in place for the annual plan for 26-27. I think it still is about 40 million for that year alone. And
thank you for your question, Snow. It's one that we should always be looking at. So that's great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Jessie? I don't think so. Jessie, thank you for that, and thank you for the answers. It's great to get them there. The motion is that we note the finance report. I'm going to move it. Do I have a seconder, please? Thanks, Luke. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Right, we can move then to the Treasury report, and we have Julie. Sorry.
Jules is easier.
Jules, oh, wonderful. Oh, that's great. And we've got the additional one already to go with that as well, so that's fine.
Oh, Morena, Chair and elected members, called Julia Aho. I present to you initially the Treasury report for December 25. And ordinarily I would talk about that and, the economic environment, but as you will have noticed with the memo this morning, there is a situation that is coming up that we do need to discuss. All I will say about the Treasury report for December, it provides an update on the Council's financial position. There's 4 key ratios on page 2 that we have to conform with the LGFA governance and also with our Treasury policy, and we're comfortably within those limits. So we've been working with PwC, our Treasury advisors, as we've got $7 million worth of debt coming up in April that is due to mature. Under ordinary circumstances, we would be looking at refinancing that over another 4-5-year term after taking advice from PwC. The issue that we have to consider is that the new water services CCO is due to go operational on the 1st of July 2027, with debt and assets from the relevant councils transferring to the new CCO that relate to those water services. So do we refinance the $7 million worth of debt that's due to mature in April for another 4 to 5 years, knowing that we won't need that debt? Because most of our debt, we have $44 million worth of debt, which has been pretty static over the last 3 to 4 years. There was a little rise at the end of 2024, just where we took out an early refinancing, but largely it stayed at 44 million, and the vast majority of that is forecasted to transfer to the new CCO. So really, the purpose of my memo that has been circulated this morning is asking you as a committee to make a recommendation to council. Council have to approve any non-compliance with Treasury policy. The preferred option that we as a staff are putting to you is, if we refinance the $7 million in April with a much smaller, with a shorter term commercial paper loan issue rather than a term loan, still through LGFA, it means that our 3 to 4 year debt is going to reduce. Come April, we're not going to be putting another 4 to 5 million, another 7 million in that 3 years and over bucket. If we take the shorter term option, which is cheaper and is also more reasonable to consider, bearing in mind that there is going to be this debt transfer to the CCO, we will be out of compliance with our Treasury policy in the 3 years and over bucket. And any non-compliance has to be approved by council. And so, yes, I'm seeking your approval for me to approach council to look at granting us a temporary non-compliance while we are navigating the current environment.
I'll just add to what Julie's talking about, and that because I've been dealing with Northern Water's done well and actually doing the negotiations with new Treasury advisors for the new water CCO. And so one of the tasks that we have as finance officers of each of the 3 councils is to not just transfer the debt, but the debt has different ages on it, for repayment. It has different derivatives, interest derivatives associated with that. So we all have to sit down, and we're all going to be out of compliance for a while, but and work out what goes to the new company, and then what are we left with, and then sort ourselves out for compliance. So that's going to be happening all throughout New Zealand in the next year. So that's why we're asking this, because then it gives us, if we only have it for a short time, we know we've got 7 million, that then if that's all we need, or we might only need 4 million of debt, you know, because we've got 44 million now, I think about 38 million might be what's relating to waters at the moment, but it's going to grow over the next year and a half. And then what we'd be looking at is then taking the whatever's left and saying, okay, then we want to comply with it with our treasury policy. Because if we take something longer, then we might not be able to fix it. We might be out of compliance with our treasury policy for far longer. Yeah. So that's why we're asking.
So the point is we're in transitional areas. There's two limits we're going to breach. One is maturity, which is your 3 to 4 year bucket.
Yes.
And the other one is the interest rate cover.
Yes.
Which means that actually, if you go to the chart, we are under, but
Only just.
only just the balance is that actually, I mean, you have that limit for risk purposes. We are arguably taking on a wee bit more extra risk, but it's also meeting a longer term or a medium term objective of we need the flexibility subject to the change of the. Okay, got it. Quick questions, comments for Jules. I need to say far north, isn't it?
Yes.
Exactly. Got it. Thank you. Right. No, I got it. No, I understand it. So questions for Jules here. Make sense? So the options are we run with this transitional, the motions are the transitional arrangements. Does mean we are outside our existing policies, but we've got the rationale here and we think that it is prudent.
Yes.
Well, interest
Well, interest, so the OCR has remained steady for the last couple of monetary review meetings at the RBNZ. At the moment, looking into this scenario, the indicative margin that PwC and I were looking at for this shorter term commercial paper, you're looking at 0.25%. For term loans, you're looking at typically double that at sort of 0.56. So there is a cost element. You know, we will have to pay interest on whatever we refinance in April, whether it's over 12 months or over 4 or 5 years. It's just how much it's going to cost.
Well, your risk here, Craig, is that you're on floating. You're on floating.
It's the floating, yeah.
So whereas conventionally we would look to fix a fair chunk of our debt. Well, that's what the interest rate risk is all about. We're exposing ourselves slightly to the risk of what the future rate will be.
Yeah. So at the moment, the market is kind of agreeing with what the RBNZ is sort of saying. It's sort of remaining steady as she goes, I think is the phrase out on the market at the moment. But yeah, inflation continue, provided inflation eases, we should see that dropping, the OCR at some point. But certainly for the moment, it's steady.
Okay, for the benefit of moving on, I think it's time to look at our motions. I just need to check that I've got this all correct here. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Look at it there. That we note the Treasury report and that we recommend to Council the temporary non-compliance with the Treasury, where you can read the rest there because of the Water Services CCO. I'm prepared to move that. I second that. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Gary. Thanks for that, Jules. Appreciate that. All good. Nice to meet you again. I look forward to shake your hand properly.
Next quarter.
Yeah.
See you guys at the next council meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Can we go to item 3.6, please, which is our policies and bylaws update?
And this is Nina Tui.
Nina. Welcome, Nina.
Morning, everybody. Morena, ko Nina tui tōku ingoa. Nice to join you and meet you for the first time. So there's just maybe a couple of things I'd like to draw your attention to in the report, and I'm taking it as read. The first thing is that it's very much building on the previous report. So it is linked in this one, but there was a huge amount of legislation which I haven't repeated. So particularly around the water, as has been discussed, lots of things happening in the water space, the Regulatory Standards Act, the Local Government System Improvements Act, Regulatory Systems, Internal Affairs Amendment Bill, and the Building and Construction Bill. So that just make sure that context is still sort of in the back of your mind. And then, of course, there's the 4 that we have gone through in this report. To draw your attention to, although there are a number in the table that are overdue policies, all of the teams are aware of these, they're all working on them. They're not statutory policies, and as has been discussed, there have been some limitations with human resource capacity, and some of them also are aligned with the election cycle, so there needed to be some delays. And the statutory one coming up is the dangerous, unsanitary and affected buildings policy, which you remember from your briefing a couple of weeks ago. That's going to be, I'll be seeing you next week on that one as well, so well underhand. So I wouldn't raise any concerns, although there are a few due dates that obviously are overdue. They're in play, shall we say. And then in terms of the watching briefs, my only point I wanted to raise was that there's a huge amount of intersectionality. So it's very hard to make any informed speculation about how these things are going to play out, because there's so much intersectionality between all of these different pieces of legislation. So for example, we know there's reform coming in the RMA space. We know that there's going to be an increased need for monitoring. Then we also know that there's proposals for rate capping, which will limit our ability to have extra staff for that monitoring. So things like that, which, really they're all crossing over. As much as I'd love to have a crystal ball and give you some really solid policy advice in this area, I think particularly the intersectionality of them just makes that very, very complicated. But they are being closely monitored. Our council has submitted to central government, which you would have heard in your briefing. So we are actively putting our position forward. So I think we are doing what we can.
Thanks, Nina.
Questions?
Good questions for Nina, please. It's very comprehensive. Thank you. Any questions? Nina, look, just really to signal a couple of things, if I can do it from looking at initially what I've heard today. Obviously, the risk management policy is of direct interest to this committee. It happens to be the oldest one as well. I will be keen to see progress on that for what it's worth. It's not that we don't have a risk policy in place. It's not that we're not managing risks, but I will be interested to see where that goes. And even though the idea or the sense of a workshop, etc., coming forward, it would be great if we could perhaps use that workshop as also a chance to look at our management policy. I haven't got a date for that, but it might well be after the annual plan has been set, which is the logical time for us to be thinking about our strategic risks. So I just say that. The other thing is, look, to be honest, we have received a fairly direct set of comments from Benny, our external auditor, and we will have a particular interest, I think, going forward in procurement policy, and it's all of these are important. I mean, I shouldn't overlook GIF members and yada, 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 but I just want to focus, just to sort of signal those 2 are ones that, as chair, I'll be keeping a beady eye on to see that they come through. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from folk? No? Can we go to the
Yeah,
rest?
just one quick one. Apologies, just a quick one from me. Given the legislative reforms and the current sort of council risk profile, has there been
an impact assessment done on how that would affect our risk profile?
So through the chair, what we have done, and you'll see one of our key risks, in fact, I think it's the first two, are related to reforms and just keeping up with them, responding, and the government sending, doing changes just prior to Christmas, when it's Christmas holidays, and being able to respond to all the reforms, it's really challenging. They're just coming one on top of each other. So for a small council, it is really hard for us to keep up.
Okay.
So
I think,
thank you.
I think, Snow, if you go back to that idea that I talk about, either we settle on the strategy, therefore there are risks attendant with that strategy, or there are externalities that could affect our strategy. I think the points that Nina's raised absolutely point to substantial challenges to how we work with our community and deliver for them. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And it's behind things like the CTB, regional reorganisation. I mean, it's almost existential for particularly smaller councils, I would argue, which includes us at that size. Sorry.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
You go for
I was just going to say, just from my perspective, what would be super helpful in my eyes is having some really good, reporting back to this committee. And I don't know what form that will take, whether it's a roadmap around, some of the challenges or issues that are, that are coming up, and just, I suppose, having a lens on it early, I think sort of is where I'm coming from.
I agree. And look, let's just pick that one up. I think just to confirm that point when we get to our strategic risk discussion, Snow, I think you're absolutely correct.
Just wanted to explain to the committee, as I'm the policy owner of the risk policy, just background, what happened was we did review it in 2023. There was 2 words to change in it, and we came to the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee and asked to defer it till now, because what I found was the main thing I want to change in the policy is pulling the risk appetite statement out of the policy so that we don't have to change the policy every time we need to change the appetites. And actually those appetite statements are quite important to staff because it drives our decision making and how we approach decisions on your behalf. What we found was the previous council had set that appetite, and then the new council didn't have the same appetite. So we tried to align it to the new term so you could set your appetites together, have a really robust discussion, and then we'll pull that out of the policy and go from there. So we can update those hopefully every year, I would hope.
Need to. Hey, thank you for that. That's really helpful insight. Nina, thank you for your report. The motion is that we note Nina's report. I move in a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Snow. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank
Aye.
you. We can move now, please, to the health and safety.
we've got Jonathan Dell.
Jonathan, g'day, buddy. Welcome to the meeting. I'm just conscious of time. I think you can take it that we have read the report. So anything that is salient, please raise that, Jonathan. That'd be great.
Just for those new to my report, I just wanted to outline that we're really looking at our leading indicators and lagging indicators. Our leading indicators are the things that we are doing as a council to try and ensure that nobody is harmed or has injuries, and our lagging indicators are where we've had reports done. Is there any questions on the report that you'd like me to discuss?
Thank you for that. That's really, really helpful. You've taken my advice to heart. Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have questions for Jonathan here?
No, through the chair, no great questions, but I note under your workplace aggression, the animal management officers having to deal with a lot of aggressive owners. It's quite pertinent at the moment, given the recent events.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really comprehensive report. It's quite, interesting reading everything that goes on for and what people, are dealing with out there.
There are a couple of observations, and I'm going to, this is as I've built into understanding the position here at Kuiper, Jonathan. Just want to reflect on a couple of questions. The near miss reporting seems quite low. Is that your experience here?
It's my experience in a lot of organisations that people generally tend to think that if something's minor, they don't think of the end consequence of what could have happened. So yeah, near miss reporting can be low in a whole lot of organisations. I think it feels low here, my gut feeling. So it's just, and we do reinforce that across our organisation all the time, that something happens, we need to know. I'd rather you report everything.
Yeah.
And we can work out what happens after that. Yeah.
I look at it, and perhaps it's, you've exactly correct. And I'm not being critical that we are near zero. I agree with it. But in terms of being an indicator, sorry, that forward-looking indicator, isn't it? To know the near misses is gold in the sense of being able to understand. Okay, so it'll be, I'm sure that's something you pick up with your health and safety committee to encourage. Perhaps I'm not endorsing your encouragement of them that it's not wasted time to get near misses recorded so that we can understand. Great. Workplace aggression. Look, I think you've given us a strong sense here, and I mean, I'm conscious of the current incident, but you do get it back into the animal management officer area. Is there anything you can add at this stage that's more at the general level rather than the specifics to the Kaihua issue?
They've all are a really, really good team across our organisation. They've all got good skills. They've received conflict training, all that type of work behind them. So got all the resources. We try to support them. They're a small team.
My experience, particularly of animal management officers, were really praised for the work that they do. Is they're a pretty resilient bunch, but it doesn't mean to say they're not subject to stress.
Yes, exactly.
I presume I'm going to ask the leading. Obviously, you're aware of that. That's something that we're comfortable is controlled is the wrong word. They're supported in that sense.
Absolutely, everybody in our organisation, everybody in our organisation is supported, and it's not just EAP at the bottom of the cliff. They're able to come and talk to us, and we can provide support. And we know they are resilient, but that's sometimes skin deep.
Yeah.
And we certainly take the time to check in on them and make sure they are actually okay.
Okay. And look, and thank you again for the detail you've got sitting there. One of the things that I'll be interested perhaps to get your views on as we go forward is section 44.4 of the Act. Sounds subsection 4 it is, which is actually the duties and obligations of an officer. You know that as well as I do. And I think I would be interested in your view about how we're going about officers meeting their obligation, because councillors are officers, even though they don't carry the liability. But it does mean there are some statutory obligations on the people around this table, and even, I hate to say, even arguably me, given the legal advice I've taken about the position of an independent. So you might say there's a bit of self-interest in this one, Jonathan. But I would be interested to understand a short assessment from you about how we're going on section 44.4, which, requires us to be obliged to be aware, to know the system, and actually to verify. So I'd be interested to understand that a wee bit more and how that operates here in Kuiper.
Ask when you'd like that.
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
Is that possible for the next?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, next meeting. I'm just indicating that I think it would be useful for us just to pick that one up as well to make certain we are getting the tone right from the time.
I think this is really
measure ourselves on this. What I'm trying to say. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Luke?
Just one quickly through the chair. It would be really useful to get a little summary of can't think of the word. Were you using 3 capital letters to describe something? MTI.
Bibliography. Sorry.
Yeah, sort of. MOP, which I think is in Republic.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, AMO. So there's actually lots of these in this report. From an education background, we quite often at the start of our reports got them because it's almost a different language to those of us not fluent in this particular language. So or even if I had it somewhere where I could look it up, would be quite useful. I'm sure I'll pick them up after the first year, but gotta have something to work with. Be good, thank you.
The Chair, absolutely. Health and safety has very many acronyms. We even make
acronyms, the word I was looking for.
Things as well. So I'm very aware of that. So let's just provide that.
Yeah. Tax ones. I know those ones. Yeah.
Look, I just did have one question because actually it's often certainly the first time for a long time I've come across a positive test. What's our expectation on contractors with staff who fail a drug test?
They manage, first up, they have a drug and alcohol policy and that they're managing their people appropriately and fairly. So there's an HR component to that as well. And that they're managing and that pre-testing is useful so that they can identify, because that's a huge risk, particularly if they're managing machinery or anything like that, high risk, critical risk stuff. If you don't understand a person's their capability and they are diminished because of drugs, then we have a problem. We certainly need to strengthen up our expectations of our contractors.
I mean, I just, there is one sort of there, you mentioned that and you've indicated machinery and the driver was found to have a positive drug test. So we have an ongoing relationship with our contractor. They're forming with us PCBU. What's our expectation then about being us as a combined PCBU being freed of that risk that they would fail another drug test?
I understand the question. We are still working with that contractor and our expectations.
It's still an active issue.
They're managing it and they have managed that particular. In that instance, we wanted a full report and I'm not talking just one pager. We want an actual incident report. We want to understand what they've done, what corrective actions they've put in place to ensure that anywhere on our network that doesn't happen within their organisation again. The outcome that we push through the contract manager. So I make sure it's the contract manager's job. Safety is everybody's role, not just mine. So I make sure that their role is to go back to that organisation and get that information for me so I can comfortably report to Jason and ET that we've nailed it, we've got it, we're on top of it.
Right, thank you. Okay, folk, any other questions? Being none, can we go to the resolution, please? Jonathan, thank you for the efficiency and the clarity of your report. That we note the report. Do I have a move and a second, please? Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Rachel. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate that. Sue. Regulatory compliance.
Yeah, so this is a report I do gather up from information from different departments on the regulatory compliance. That is, if we're not meeting statutory deadlines, which happens, and what we're doing about it. And there could be items like abatement notices where there's overspill, which does happen, and then what we're doing about them as well. So you can see from the report, we've done really well on building consents, 100% compliance for the last 4 months, and even before that, 98. That's a high rate of compliance. You can see the building consents we've received over the past 4 years have they are reduced on previous years. Code of compliance, obviously 100%, that's a really good record. And looking at resource consents, for the last couple of months, we've been on time 100%, and there was just one blip there, 97%. And that's still, that might only be 1 or 2 resource consents over the period. That's really good results. So, and you can see in infrastructure, we note whether there's abatement notices, and you can see the Kaiwaka wastewater treatment plant and Mangataroto wastewater treatment plant, there's been abatement notices. Everything else, there might be some non-compliance and what we're doing about it. So, that's the report.
This is a really valuable report, so thank you for that. And I think it's a good report that we get. So if we have questions at all for Sue on this one.
Not so much a question that quite like to note your income seems dropped off a cliff, and that's
Yeah. I mean, then I suppose that's in line with the resource, you know, you can only look at the resource consents and what that team's processing, but some of the building, when they actually become lots, may be up to 5 years later, you know, when, or longer than that people actually build on the systems. And that's in line with the economic situation out there, starting to build up a little bit. And in fact, there's a bit more, slightly more confidence in the market, and yeah, with tradespeople, I understand, but it's still quite low compared to what it was. I mean, interest rates are coming down, so we might see next year that there's a lot more building. I know they are selling sections at Mangawhai Central and at Mangawhai Hills, so things are progressing. It's just slower than what we've had. So it means we also don't collect the amount of fees that we think we're going to collect.
Thank you for that. I appreciate also, I was interested in just looking through the infrastructure challenges, but obviously infrastructure are attuned to the issues and that they are trying to remedy those situations. Any particular issues that we should know? I mean, there are issues we should note, but is there any particular matter that should be raised here, Sue?
No, I don't believe so. I think we're trying to comply with things we've noted.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Oh, is your hand up? No, you're just on mute. That's fine. Can we go to the resolution, please, which is that we note the regulatory compliance report with our thanks. I'll move it. Do I have a second, please? Thank you, Rachel. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried.
Aye.
Yeah, we have the resolution to move into public excluded.
Well, it's got one more.
Oh, I always do this every meeting. Sorry, this is I'm famous for this. So I try and slip it through.
Attention.
What have I missed?
It's the recommendations from.
The recommendations.
Oh, sorry. I have. Okay. Can
So,
we
and I'm
pick
leading
it up, please? Sorry.
Okay, so I'm leading that one as well. So from time to time, not only our financial auditors, but we have audits of different parts of our business, either compliance from NZTA, it could be on food MB compliance, or the BCA is being audited, and we bring those reports to council. And this is a way that we keep a record of actually what were the recommendations and what are staff doing about it, and are they being completed? So they're on a list, and that's all it is, so it doesn't just drop off. So on here, I can just actually, with the item noted under the Deloitte Constructive Report 2022 for 2.1 and 2.2, I can say they've been completed now. We've had discussions with the valuers. They're taking a conservative depreciation approach to the sub-base. So they're sort of financial questions, but we've completed those. You can see another one sort of baked. We had an awful lot of cash there that were held on the premises. We've still too much for my life, but because it's the ice and some other areas that we couldn't like to go to completely hard-based. So no cash held on premises, but we have got a card being used for the showers now. So, and some of the processes that were BDO has been doing a number of internal audits for us on specific areas. Kaiwi Lakes was one, but some of the comments can't actually improve on them until we change our financial system, which we are looking at, but that's got to be scheduled in to our program. So I don't think there's anything else I can comment on. In Deloitte's constructive report to 2023, it's mainly the fixed assets, the lack of monthly reconciliations with the, not only the fixed assets, it's with the fixed assets and the asset management system. And as I say, reported before, we've now got 2 asset management. And so we hope that will go smoothly, and we'll be crossing off a lot of the the items there. We've also got in 2024, as pointed out, the procurement findings. So we'll be looking at the procurement internal controls. That's one of our key things to do in the next couple of months.
I'm concerned about keeping these going, and I am too. So we'll support you in that process. Any comments or questions for Sue at this point? I notice you used the word datascape in there. Is that a solution we have figured on, or is that the potential? Or?
It's got a potential system, one of the potential systems, and we've been having discussions with them. But but you know, you change a general ledger system, and it's a huge.
I was perhaps wanting to reflect that if we are doing that sort of significant change, which is also cultural in the organisation, I think it would be something this committee would be very interested in as you go into that process. So we could perhaps, if you just note that certainly we would retain an interest. Okay, I sense that is probably no other questions. Thank you for that. We will just, it's good to keep in mind of it, even if the chair tries to move over that too quickly. The resolution is that we note Steve's report. I'll move that by the seconder, please. Thank you, Luke. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against?
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you. So I think I am now allowed to go to my public excluded comment, Kelly. I'm in good form. We have a number of matters. You've got them listed there, and I consider the reasons to be reasonable. I'd also note from the confirmation of the agenda, we want to add the additional item of a discussion around the Kaihu event. I'm going to move from the chair that we move to public excluded. I have a seconder, please. Thank you, Craig. Is there any discussion on that motion? One time I tend to pause just to make certain we're happy. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? It's carried. Right. You can let us know when we are in the PX, please, if that's okay.